Hey gang, it's good to have you here tonight. This video is video number 7 for our middle school class. And the live class for this video will be on Monday, October 26th at 7 o'clock p.m. And I hope that you'll join us. It's on Zoom, and if you need the link and don't have it, you can contact the church or contact me, and I'll be sure to pass it along. So today we are talking about being the greatest. What are you the greatest at? So our story is about the greatest commandment that we read about in the Gospel of Matthew. In this New Testament story, Jesus explains to the Pharisees the two greatest commandments for living a good life, both of which revolve around love. So let's get right to it and open up our Bibles to Matthew chapter 22, and we're reading verses 34 to 46. So if you want to pull out your Bibles, I am, as I do each week, I'm using the NRSV version. That's what I'll be reading from. You may have a different version at home, so the wording might be a little different, but the content is certainly the same. So let us turn now to the Gospel of Matthew and read about the greatest commandment. When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. And one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" He said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." Now, while the Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus asked them this question: "What do you think of the Messiah? Whose son is he?" They said to him, "The son of David." He said to them, "How is it then that David, by the Spirit, calls him Lord, saying, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies under your feet'? If David thus calls him Lord, how can he be his son?" No one was able to give him an answer, nor from that day did anyone dare to ask him any more questions. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So what's our greatest commandment? Jesus tells us that there are two. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So when we read that, we then are able to understand what Jesus has been telling us, that through every law and through every rule and through every action of God, we should be looking at them and understanding them through this lens, this understanding that those are the greatest things, that we should be looking at them through the lens of love. And I think that's so important. Sometimes we can get hung up on, what do you think Jesus meant when he said this? Or what do you think about it when we read in the Old Testament about that? But when Jesus tells us this greatest commandment, when he lets us know that we should be looking at all of these things with the understanding that love is the most important, I think that really helps clarify a lot of questions I know that I have when I am wondering, like, what does Jesus really mean here? And he's telling us right now that start with love. If you want to understand, start with love. And truly, what a great commandment to live our lives by. So before we get together on Monday for our live class, I want you to think about a couple things so that we can take a little time to talk about this Bible verse. What did you find interesting about the way that Jesus handles the Pharisees this time? Something that stood out to me was, in all of our stories these last few weeks, it's been the Pharisees trying to trick him with questions. And this time he finally answered a question so soundly that they left and they never came back with more questions to ask him again. I thought that was a pretty interesting point in this Bible lesson. Do you think that the Pharisees were generally interested in Jesus's answer? I feel like they ask him questions to trick him, but I don't know if they're actually interested in hearing what he has to say. So I think those are things for us to think about. Is why was this the time that finally Jesus had been able to give an answer that sent them away? That they thought, oh, we can't ask another question to trick him after this one. This was the biggest one, and his answer was so big that we can't ask him again. So let's think on that. Part of what we'll also talk about on Monday is, what's the greatness that we see in our lives, and where can we be great, and how can we be great for God? So think on those things. That's part of what our conversation will be about. But we also have another thing that we'll be doing on Monday. Last week's class, we had a bit of an origami project that came with it that I had challenged those in the class to put together, and we had a little bit of a big talk from the folks in that class about their origami skills and being able to build and make some great origami pieces. So a gauntlet has been thrown, and we're having a bit of an origami challenge on Monday evening. So if you join us, or if you'd like to just join us for the first time, and you think, I love doing some origami, find a great project and make it and bring it to show and share, and we'll see who truly has the very best, who is the greatest at origami. And speaking on that, I started thinking about when we talk about greatness, a lot of times we end up referring to things like the Guinness Book of World Records, like who is the greatest at doing something. And I found a really great video that it's the world's greatest paper folder. And this isn't necessarily an origami project, but it's a super cool record that she held, and is able to do something that I didn't think could be done. So I'm going to pull up a video for us to watch. It's about 3.5 minutes long. It's a pretty cool story and some neat science. So for those of you that are science and math fans, I think you'll appreciate what Miss Brittany Gallivan here is able to accomplish. So let's pull this up and let's watch Brittany Gallivan's record-holding paper fold.
Hello, I'm Brittany Gallivan. Have you ever heard the commonly accepted belief that no one can fold a piece of paper or anything in half more than 8 times? And that was 6 folds for this piece of paper. Back in 2001, my honors pre-calculus instructor challenged anyone in the class to fold anything in half 12 times. This is a sheet of gold foil, 4 inches by 4 inches, 11 millionths of an inch thin. It is actually thinner than the wavelength of visible light. I folded the 4 by 4 inch gold foil in half 12 times. My teacher stated that he had misspoken and that the challenge was actually to fold any piece of paper in half 12 times. The paper folding challenge is often used as an example of exponential growth. If you fold paper in half 50 times, you could reach the sun. Every time you fold the paper, these double. What people weren't taking into account for was the radius section. In an initial fold, the radius section is minimal. As the folds get larger, this radius section takes up more and more paper, although this doubles, the amount of paper that you need in the radius section for each fold actually squares. As your number of folds increases, you need 4 times the length to achieve the next fold. Where's my pen? Oh. I derived 2 limiting equations for folding anything in half. One was for single direction folding. When solving for length, pi times the thickness over 6 multiplied by 2 to the n plus 4 times 2 to the n minus 1. And then the second equation was for alternate directional folding. Width is going to equal pi times thickness times 2 to the 3n minus 1 divided by 2. I researched online and found paper that was 33 thousandths of an inch thin that was 4,000 feet in length. I quickly realized that material this thin was not going to work because the slightest breeze would ruin the attempt. I found a space called the Village at Indian Hill in Pomona. It had a long corridor that would suffice to take on this challenge. After 8 hours of crawling on the mall floor, I was able to successfully fold the paper in half 12 times. This here is the 11th fold. It's great to be in the record books and to finally set the paper folding record straight. I hope that others can look at this challenge and take it on themselves and maybe even expand on it and take on their own impossible challenges.
Wasn't that cool? I thought good for her to be able to figure that out, that not only did she manage to fold something, more than 8 times, she had done enough, 12 times, enough to break a world record. So kudos to Brittany and her greatest record-breaking skill, her paper folding. So, I think we all have great things inside of us that we can do. Maybe it might not be world record breaking skills or feats, but we all, with God with us, are able to do greatness. So remember that as we move through our lives, that when we, every action and everything that we move towards should first be looked at through that lens of love, that greatest commandment that Jesus has given us. So I hope that you will join us on Monday to be able to talk about the greatest commandment as well as our origami challenge. But I can't wait to see you, and I look forward to talking to you on Sunday during our worship broadcast, and I hope you'll join us for that. So bye for now. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you really soon. Bye.